Good afternoon, everyone. It's story time. Our story is called I Was There 1066, The Norman Conquest. We are on chapter 10. Let's get started. Tomorrow at first light? As these words sank in, I knew it was important that I get back to our own camp as fast as possible to warn the king. But how could I get away from these men without raising their suspicion? Fortunately, the answer came in a helpful guard who'd first found me. Well, young man, now you've finished your stew, we ought to go and find your brother, he said. Thank you, I said, and scrambled to my feet. The problem I now had was how to get away from him and how to stop myself being taken to where the priests and servants were stationed. Once I was there, my lie would soon be exposed. No one would be my brother, and no one would recognize me. I would be captured and questioning if the answers weren't forthcoming often meant torture. We set off towards the part of the huge camp where the priests and servants were based, me following the French soldier. As we neared the section of camp, I suddenly stopped and blurted out, "There he is!" "What, your brother?" asked the guard. "Yes," I said. Then I waved and shouted out, "Pierre!" As I shouted, some of the men in the camp turned to look at me, but I turned back to the guard. "He must have come looking for me," I said. "Thank you." And then I ran towards the area where the priests and servants were. Behind me, the guard muttered something. "Good luck!" I turned to wave him farewell and saw that he was already heading back to rejoin his companions by his own campfire. I saw that some of the people in the priests and servants area were still watching me, so I set off after the departing guard, and immediately they seemed to lose interest in me. I stopped, looked around, and spotted a clump of trees and bushes towards the outer area of the camp. I walked over to the clump as if I was heading that way to use the toilet, but once I was there, I dropped down into the ground. By now, it was completely dark outside, and the areas of the fires without whose flames lit up the camp. Now I had to get out of the camp, past the guards, once again, and I had done this before. I began to crawl over the ground, moving too slowly. As I did, my eyes adjusted to the dark. What had been just blackness became shapes and shadows of darkness. I remembered my father's words about staying alert and keeping my eyes and ears sharp for sounds and moving shapes. I crawled, feeling brambles tugging at my clothes, sharp thorns digging and tearing into my skin. I had to get back to the English camp. I had to warn the king and my father that the Norman attack was just hours away. I moved slowly, guessing and hoping that I must be nearing the edge of the Norman camp, and then I stopped as I heard voices. 2 men, Normans, obviously on guard duty, and my heart pounded as I heard one say, "I heard something moving." In the darkness, I could just make out the shapes of 2 men, and one of them was pointing a spear in my direction. "I can't hear anything," said the other. "It stopped now," said the first, "but it sounded big. It must be an animal." "Animal means meat," said the other. "I've been living on oats and turnips for too long." In the gloom, I saw the man raise his spear. What was I going to do? "What are you doing?" demanded the other guard. What's it look like I'm going to do?" "I'm going to kill me something to eat." And then I saw his arm move. Frantically, I rolled forward and sideways, and just in time, because the spear thudded into the ground where I'd been hiding just a second before. I carried on rolling and then began to run, crouching low. I heard one of the men groan and say, "It's gone." Then the other asked, What sort of animal do you reckon it was? I carried on running as fast as I could, stumbling now and then on the uneven ground and sometimes falling, but always driving myself on. Finally, when I felt I'd gone far enough, I stopped and looked back, listening. The guards in the Norman camp were behind me. Now to get to my horse and back to the king with my information. That's the end of that chapter. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.